Challenge your potential and the sky's the limit. Join me, Emily Ibbott, in a diary to empower. From a starting point of a love for dance, my life has evolved, but along the way, I've learned so much in how we develop, learn and grow from those around us to elevate us even further on. Be inspired and be open to learn, and no limit will ever exist. Come along with me on my own journey in personal development, but with guests who have empowered me and are still doing so in my own journey. Hello and welcome back. We are on to my next episode and we're going to try a little different approach. So I have reached out to you guys who have all been listening, and obviously thank you so much for the listen so far, and I hope you're enjoying it. It's really nice to have different guests on so far, and just to also see how you guys are enjoying the podcast and engaging with the topics that I'm speaking about. Obviously I have spoken about quite a bit of my journey and sort of how I sort of got to being a pro bodybuilder, but I haven't really spoken about the ins and outs of like the process or anything. So I threw this out to you guys over on my Instagram, and I'm just sort of going to talk today about different topics within that, a part of the process, and just to explain like how I got to certain points and why I chose to do certain things and my experiences from it. And I think as well in the bodybuilding industry, it's hard to know what's right and wrong, because there is no right and wrong, and it's about understanding people's experiences as well to really help you to understand what you can expect from sort of competing and shoots, and just understanding everything that's within it. So let's get going. I've got all the questions saved onto my phone from what you guys have given me. So highest and lowest point of the whole process. A massive question to start with. And I would say that if we're just talking about my stage journey, I would say sort of the highest point has got to be being on stage and show day. And I think peak week, it really kind of hits you that it's happening and you're about to get on stage and you've got to do all these little prep things, and you're just going to pump up at the gym. You're not really properly training. The work is done by then. But the highest has to be getting on that stage, and I'll never forget those moments. I mean, a lot of them are on my Instagram of knowing, like, especially in my first show, my coach was literally right beside me talking me through the whole pump up process. And it was tunnel vision. I was completely glammed up to the nines. My heels were on, my bikini was on, and it was just like, okay, this is happening. And I remember walking on stage being like, oh my goodness. And I had about 40 people roar at me when I walked on stage, which was amazing. And I think coming from a performing background, I just loved being on stage, and it's the icing on the cake. Like, that's what you work towards, and you work everything up to that one day that you have in your head. You know the date inside out, you know how many weeks out you are, and it just is a constant countdown. So yeah, it has to be that, and sort of having that support from the audience and just moving. It's tough on stage, but that's why you get to that point, which is epic. Now, lowest point is a really tough one to speak about for my competing process, because I was very abnormal in my prep, and I loved every single second of it. I think a lot of people said to me, oh, you'll be in the trenches and you'll feel rubbish and you'll feel super fatigued and you're not really going to have a clue what's going on and you're not going to be able to string words together. Now, there were times that were tough, like towards the back end of prep, and like fatigue was high, but I'm a nap queen for anyone who knows me. So I really made sure that I knew where my energy was being placed. And I think it's being strategic about that and understanding that you need to just reserve as much as your energy as possible to give to your training, and obviously to what I had to give to my clients and my work. And I still had to do all those things. So then when I could shut down and have my chill time, that was it. But I think the hardest thing was, lowest point I think was just, it was my hardest thing through prep was with my patience. My patience level was like nil. And I think, you know, anything that would be a simple task, like if I was trying to get my bottle open and it wouldn't come off, it would just send my fury through the roof. And, you know, if I dropped something, I'd be like, well, that's going to stay there now. And I think that was probably, I wouldn't say it's necessarily low, but I think that was one of the toughest things that I found. Was just I didn't have any spare energy to think about things for longer than a certain period of time. So it really was interesting how that affected me. And I think that was the biggest thing that I did find affect me. And, you know, again, the fatigue I didn't hugely struggle with. The week after my first show, like I was pretty pooped, and I had that like slight rest, and I got some more food, and then I went straight back into it, and I found that really tough. But I didn't really have any low points where I just kind of needed to be on my own or anything like that. Like I thrived off the entire process, and I realized that was pretty abnormal from what people have said to me. But you know, I think people think you should feel like that when actually you don't necessarily have to, and it's different for everyone, and it's also different in every prep. So I imagine the next time I get on stage it will be entirely different. So it'll be interesting to sort of see how those processes go for that. So I would say those are my high point has got to be on stage, and obviously my lowest or sort of hardest point was just my patience levels by the back end of prep. My goodness me, it was tough. And we have the next one. So which was your fave federation and show? Would you try others next time? Now, choosing is really interesting when you look at federations, because you look on the bodybuilding calendar and it is huge. Like there are hundreds of shows. There are so many shows per month, and you have no idea what to choose, like, and what the hell to do. Now, I was very fortunate. I have a very good friend who is also a judge of WNBF, which is the World Natural Bodybuilding Federation. Now, how I came to choose the federations was I'm a natural athlete, so I wanted to go for the natural federations. You know, I wanted to sort of everyone to be on the same playing field. And it's not to say that natural athletes can't get on untested federations or go into untested federations for the shows, but it can be tougher because you obviously don't know who you're up against, and natties can show their ground hugely. But you know, I had no idea what to expect, so I thought, well, I'll sort of push for the larger federations, which are natural federations, because there are so many different, and to different federations depends on different posing, depends on different criteria. Every criteria for that category can be different, so it's really confusing to pick. So obviously I competed with WNBF and I competed with UK DFBA, which is the UK Drug Free Bodybuilding Association, if I've got that correct, and they were my two planned. Now I actually about between the second and third one, I added in another one. So I added in a second one, and that was with NFM UK through my posing coach, and she said, I really think you should go for this one. And yeah, and you know, I wouldn't be a pro bodybuilder without doing that show, so it was incredible. And I think that it was really tough because I was like, well, I had no expectation for NFM, because I didn't want to, there was going to be people that could be assisted. So I had no expectation of just going in and just doing my best and putting my all into it. Now my coach, we brought the condition big time, and he will always bring the condition with all of his athletes. So obviously condition, when we speak about that, it's sort of the lines you see, the details, and sort of when someone says you look dry as an athlete, like that, you sort of basically peeled to the bone, so you can see everything. You don't have this sort of layer of water, or nothing seems soft at all. So the condition was something that we brought, and we brought even better from WNBF in July to NFM and UK DFBA, and they were actually back to back. So that was again unexpected. I didn't plan to do two shows back to back, one after the other, one being in Wales and then having to drive straight back home to do another one in Camberley. And my experiences with those federations, I would say for WMBF, it was it was insane. And I think the difficult thing with natural feds is there's not loads of them, and their shows are very, very busy. Now, WMBF only have 2 shows. They have their first time as a novice, and then obviously they have their the Supernaturals, which is their finals in October. So they were busy shows. There was big categories of lineups, and especially in the male categories. So obviously it ran a little bit behind, and I think that comes with pretty much every bodybuilding show. You have no power over that, and if you've got busy classes, you truly do not know who's going to turn up on the day, and even people who have signed up, they may not be there on the day, so you never truly know until that day comes on how the times are running and everything. But yeah, I loved WMBF, and it was the girls were incredible. Who I was up against, and it was really, really tough. So obviously I came placed second within that show. Now obviously NFM was completely different. There was 4 of us, and 1 girl got bumped up a category. So there was 3. And yeah, and it was just very different, but it was seamless from start to finish. And I will definitely I will be competing with NFM again. And GBO is the organisation. So NFM is a federation, GBO is the organisation. So the medals and stuff you get, it says GBO on it. And obviously if you go to the Atlas and anything, it's under GBO. But NFM will take you. So, and yeah, everything was seamless. The timings you got for your tan, the timings you got for when the show was going to be, they kept people in the loop during the show and what categories were next. And it was just absolutely flawless from start to finish. And I was on and off pretty quickly. Everything happened in one, you knew your result there and then. Then comparing that again to WMBF, we had a slight split show. So I was up on stage, then I had a break, and I was off stage for about an hour and a half, so I needed to just time it well to then re-pump up again before going on stage in a sparkly bikini. So I had a plain coloured bikini and then a sparkly one. So it's really hard talking about the different federations because they just all run so differently. Obviously NFM was just flawless. I loved it, and obviously after I'd competed in the amateur show, I got my pro status. I then came away, and they even told us when the pro show was going to be, the timings that it was, and we knew exactly what was happening. And they got all the pro athletes backstage before that show in the afternoon, and they sort of told us the exact run of how it was going to go and how many people were in each class. So people were aware of that before the afternoon show had even started, which was really helpful. And the communication in sending emails and your athlete packages and all of that were insane. WMBF, a lot of the athlete packages and stuff came slightly later, so it was a little bit harder to kind of know what was going on and tan times and stuff. And obviously you want to know your tan times and things just before peak week, so you kind of know what to expect and how to map out, even though you don't technically need to know until a couple of days before, but you don't want that added stress on peak week. You want to sort of know how it's going to happen because you don't want cortisol levels to increase or anything like that. So it's really something to think about in how federations run their shows. And my last show was UK DFBA, and again, natural show. So it was tested, and so I placed second in this one as well, and it was busy, so busy. I remember turning up in the morning because normally you register the evening before when you get your tan, and obviously we didn't register till the day when we got our top up tan, so it made it all a bit chaotic, and the theatre was packed with people. I fortunately had a friend that lived literally pretty much next to the theatre, so I was able to escape to her house, whereas it's really hard for the athletes that travel because they need to linger in the theatre, and it was really warm and it's a small space and you've got to cram whether you've got to do your makeup, and you want it to be a calm atmosphere where you can sort of have space to lay all your things out if you need it, especially being a female athlete. You have so much stuff because obviously we've got hair and makeup and all of that jazz as well. So, and I found the biggest differences between them all was the posing. So I'm a figure athlete. Now in WMBF, you weren't allowed to do any overhead. So overhead meaning double bicep or back double bi. You couldn't do any sort of one arm down and one arm above the head. It was all below head. WMBF, you got a few extra shots. So you could do some muscularity shots, so some ab shots. Which was really fun, and some tricep shots, chest shots. But again, it was all below head. Then in NFM, you could do everything. And I was able to do a routine as well, which I loved doing. I was really going to struggle with not doing a routine. It was something I was really looking forward to, but not realizing that the natural shows, a lot of them don't have routines for figure as the category. So NFM, I got to do overhead poses. I got to do all the relaxed shots. So all sort of your plane posing, as I would say, for those that aren't that in tune with the posing side of things in bodybuilding. So the relaxed shots are just your standard shots that you would present to yourself, and then you have what you'd say like a muscularity round where you can do more of the fun poses, as I would say, so like over the head, back double bi, just showing a little bit more off, which was super fun. And then obviously I got my routine. Now my routine was my own and I choreographed it, and then my posing coach just perfected it and put the extra spice on it to make it awesome. And I will hold that routine forever in my heart. I can know it off by heart at any point if anyone needed me to do it. And I loved it. So that really opened up the opportunities within NFM that I could do. Whereas again, with UK DFBA, I felt like on the day, it really limited what my true abilities and what I wanted to show off as much as possible could be. It was just a relaxed shots. Even you get an eye walk instead of a routine with some of the natural feds, and I had the same at WMBF. And the eye walk is where you sort of come to the middle of the stage at the back, you do a pose, you walk forward, then you do 4 poses round in a circle. Now these poses for UK DFBA were no different to the ones where you were lined up with all the other girls. And I found this not boring, but it wasn't showing off what I could push for even more, and also what I'd worked towards to show off. So I don't know whether, looking back now, I would compete with UK DFBA again, only sort of mainly for that reason. And obviously the show wasn't run the best. It was very, very, very behind. But yeah, it was an epic show. Like on the stage, they ran through the poses in really good time. And they'd done all the awards there and then, which was fantastic. And all the girls were incredible. But I think it's just so hard. And I think most bodybuilding shows just do run behind in general. But me personally, it would be interesting to see maybe try a different federation. But I think it's really hard to know when you're a first timer, because I'd gone to see those shows the year previous when I wasn't competing, just to see what they're like. And I think that's the biggest advice that I would give, is to go and watch the shows that you may be interested in to compete with those federations, so you get an idea of how they present their federation and what they do, and also what they preach. They've got loads of stuff on their websites, and it's about like really looking at what previous athletes had done and the awards they normally have on their websites, like the awards that they had for the previous shows, so that you can kind of see the standard and the criteria that they're looking for, because at the end of the day, that's what you need to meet what they're wanting, because if you don't, they won't award you sort of for that. So it's something to think about. But would I try other federations next time? Now, it's only yesterday that PCA announced. Now, PCA is a untested federation, and they have just announced that they are going to do a tested show. So that means a natural show. Now, PCA is a huge, huge federation. So it'd be really interesting to maybe try that. And I've heard lots of good things in how they run their shows. And obviously they've got lots of shows that they offer to athletes. So it's hard to tell, because obviously I'm not competing next year. And so I can't know what I'm definitely going to try. But I will definitely obviously be competing in a pro show with NFM when it comes round to it. And who knows for the others, but that's something that I will obviously look into more this time next year when the 2025 calendar comes out, which sounds ages away, but I feel like it's going to come around so quick, being as it's literally a month till Christmas. So yeah, that's more about the federations. And I think choosing, it's also knowing the rough date that you want to choose. And like I said, I got the a page up which had all the bodybuilding shows for the entire year up, and I was like, okay, where are the shows that I'm looking at? And then you kind of work backwards for when you start your prep, to touch on that. So let's have a little look at what other questions we have got. So talk us through how you chose designed your stage bikini. Now, my bikini is like my child. It was so expensive. And I think for being a female athlete, I think people forget how expensive bodybuilding is. But it is worth every single penny, and you can make it as reasonable or as expensive as you wish. Now, obviously, with the bikinis, the more jewels on there, the bigger the design, the more work that's going to go into doing the bikini, the more expensive it's going to be. Now, I found one that I was looking at, I think for the whole year prior to when I knew I was competing. As soon as I saw a bikini that I really liked, I saved it, and I was looking at all these designs and seeing these girls on stage and looking at what colours other people would have and what designs they have. And yeah, I found one on this random website or like Instagram page, and I kind of said, oh, I kind of want that, but I want this to be that color. So when it came to actually telling my bikini company lady, Susie from Miss Bikini Fitness, when it came to telling her exactly what I wanted, I sent her that picture, and then I said, but I like this part of this part of this, could this be that? And I completely changed the design, even though it was very similar, bearing in mind the colors, and they can also really help you with the colors that you want to wear, and also the colors that suit you, depending on your hair color, your eye color, your skin tone, all of that they can give you guidance on that. And I think obviously that's important to recognize. And I remember listening to other podcasts and videos of people saying, don't just choose your favorite color. You obviously want to love the bikini you're in, but certain colors, it might wash you out. And you want to look like you want to just be there. You want everyone drawn to you. It obviously doesn't make a difference, but it makes a difference to your presentation. That doesn't take away your physique or anything like that. But it can really make a difference. Now, I remember saying, on the first show, I was like, no one's going to have a bikini like mine. And it was so funny because Eleanor, who placed first, she had such a similar colour to me, and it was virtually the same, just a slight different base colour of the actual bikini material itself. And I was like, you could not write this. And obviously for WMBF, we had to have a plain bikini as well. And she had the exact same one in the colour. And I was like, what are the chances? But that doesn't matter. And obviously, if you sort of shine away and present yourself and smile, and, that's what obviously really makes a difference. But the bikini choosing part is the fun part. And it's just figuring out, obviously, there are different styles depending on whether you're figure, bikini, depends on the type of bikini, how it looks. So obviously with figure, you have like a little crossover at the back. And if you're a normal bikini or wellness, you just have one strap right round the back rather than it crossing over. And they can really help you, the designers, of the style of bottoms you choose and where it sits on your hips, because you don't want it to almost cut you in half or block you out at all. You want it to accentuate everything that you're showing off. So do keep this in mind when you're thinking about bikinis, but it's the fun part. And I when you put it on show day, it's just the best feeling in the world, and doing that bikini reveal, and it's a great time. And I want to frame mine. I remember an NFM the girl who plays second, she said, "Are you selling your bikini?" And I was like, "Absolutely not. That is my child." So yeah, no, the bikini process is a fun one. Is a fun one. So obviously, what was the process of choosing comps you did and didn't want to do? Obviously, I briefly highlighted this in the first question, but it was mainly about choosing what I wanted, what I resonated with the most. And obviously I was a natural athlete, so I leaned towards the natural federations anyway. And did your relationships get strained from doing your prep? Now, this is a really interesting topic to speak about because it's really tough with the people around you in how they understand the process. And I think it's really tough for what I would say, like the average person to understand really what you're doing. Like you can't just have one bite of that, or you can't just have a sip of this drink or try this, or, you know, have that tiny crumb. You do pretty much rule all of those things out. Well, I do anyway. There's a time to be sort of more relaxed. And to me, prep, I treat it as I don't. Like, that's it. Like, I do everything as I'm told to a T, because I know it's going to give me the best results for me to better myself. Now, regarding obviously like relationships and the people around me, it took my first 3 shoots, and I would always have people constantly saying stuff, "Why are you doing that? You're losing too much weight." And people would always say stuff and dig and dig and dig. And it took me till my stage prep for people to not say anything to me. And I think it's quite shocking when you actually say that out loud. And there would always be people like not understanding it and not like commenting on anything. And it was quite like, you have to be quite resilient to just be like, I'm doing my thing. If you don't agree with it, that's okay. Like, not everyone has to love what you do, as long as you do and you've got the passion behind it. But I think my family, they obviously learned so much more about the process as time went on, as more shoots I did. And yeah, so they understood the process, and they got to know my coach even more because they all go to his gym as well, and the gym I go to. And I think they then met him and realized actually there's so much health behind it, and he put in so much understanding that I was not going on stage unless I was fit to and healthy to, and my body was responding in the way it should be. And I think they understood that, and so they sort of stopped. They didn't say anything, and they trusted what I was doing was right. Because obviously it's really hard when you get to the back end of prep and your face is gone and everything's sunken, and you're sort of not fitting in any clothes unless it's gym clothes. And I think that's really tough for people to see, because it does go to the extreme, and it's not healthy and it's not sustainable when you get to the back end of prep. So people look at that and think, oh my gosh, that's not right. And like other family members that obviously I don't see all the time, it's more of a shock to the system when I haven't seen them in a few months, and now I'm suddenly like skin and bones and sort of a lot teenier. But obviously as soon as you get on stage, the penny drops. So my parents came to see my first show, and everything clicked, and they absolutely loved it, and they've always watched me perform, so they knew how much I loved it and how much I enjoyed doing it. Whereas I think they found it hard. Again, my patience levels, they really struggled. And I remember my dad moving some Tupperware or something that I'd put. And obviously you get very like particular about the Tupperware that you use and the utensils that you use when you're on prep, because everything's routine. You know that, and that's right. Don't change it. And my Tupperware got moved, and it was 7 a.m. And I didn't go mental, but I was very, very annoyed very quickly. And I was like, where is this? And my dad then says to my mum in the other room, I've just been shouted at for moving Tupperware. So I think it's really hard for other people to experience it, and I think that can really come into play. But at the end of the day, you choose to do this. So equally, people don't understand if you just go off on one at them. They don't understand that oh, that's just your prep. And you choose to do it, so you almost have to be in control of how you let your emotions show. Yes, there are times where things can feel a little bit more heightened. And I think that's the sort of best way to think about how it impacts relationships around you and friendships and stuff, because you don't want to ditch everyone and get annoyed with everyone and just sort of bypass everything, because it can really affect you, and you don't want it to be a lonely process. You want them to support you. And I think it got to sometimes I'd have to say to friends, like, I'm really struggling. I'm not going to be able to make this event or whatever. Please appreciate this. This is only temporary. I will definitely catch up with you. And I think it's communicating to other people what you're actually going through, and just being like, I'm absolutely pooped. Like, I don't have the energy for this. Please don't be annoyed or anything like that. And it's them understanding your passions. Obviously, I don't like it when sort of people use prep as an excuse to just be an absolute horrible person to someone. You choose to do this. It's your sport, and yes, it is extreme. There are moments where we have to sort of take all those serious things into consideration. But I think, like, in terms of like relationships, I think for me it's really important for the people, anyone I'm around, to understand the process that I'm in. Now, my ex-partner, he was also a bodybuilder. Now, for him, it was very shut off, because that's how he associated sort of being in bodybuilding. He couldn't do anything. Whereas I sort of really tried to embrace everything else, and embrace my friends around me, and still trying to do things rather than just stopping everything and just being in sort of my own little bubble. Some people treat it like that, and that was how he did it, and that was fantastic. But long term, it can really affect how your relationships are with everyone else around you, and you want them to enjoy the process with you, and that's how you can enjoy it and love it more. But I think, it just matters to me that everyone in my life understands it more than anything else, is how I would sort of complete that question. Now let me have a look. How do you stop comparing yourself to others? Now, in any shoot process, stage process, I think it's really, you can't think about others. Yeah, I think for the stage, it's really important you don't want to look at who else is on stage with you. And, you may see people who are doing the same federation as you, but it's about bettering you. And you've got to think, am I better than when I previously did my last shoot or my last stage prep? Am I better? Cool, because I've smashed that, and that's all you can do. You can only do as much as you are capable of, and if you give everything, then you know that you've smashed it. And that's the best that you could possibly do, despite the outcome that may happen or come from it. You've got to believe in yourself. And I think that's where you just have to come away from it and detach any comparisons, because their journey is slightly different. They might have done training for years prior to you, and they might have only started last year, or they might have had injuries that completely change the way their body moves, and you cannot compare. You're not that person. And we are all different. Bodies respond in different ways. Genetics are completely different. And I think you have to remember this. Focus on you and only you, because, only you're going to look at your photos. You're not going to look at someone else's stage photos. You're going to look at you in those photos. So you've just got to focus on, okay, like I remember looking at my first stage photos, or my shoot photos even, and I was like, oh, I can do better at this, and this. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And that's the best way to think of it, and just getting better. It's tough. It's really tough. And I think we naturally compare ourselves to others and compare what other people are going through. But, you don't want to dwell on that too much, because it just makes you feel down. And you want to be uplifted with what you can push for. You want to use that inspiration, like use other people as inspiration, rather than being like, oh, I could never be like that, or that's way too good, or that looks rubbish, okay, use that as inspiration. I won't be able to ever look like that, because you will never ever look the same composition, the same weight. You are not somebody else. Whenever you see like photos of people looking, say a lot like ripped on magazines, and most of them are edited anyway, but you'd say, oh, I want to look like that. You will never look like that. You will never, or I wish I could. I had so many people, I wish I could do what you do. You can do what I do, but you will never look like I do. Like, it's just impossible, because no one's built the same, right? We've all got entirely different genetics. So I think that's really important to think about as well within this question. And we're human. I think naturally we do compare a little bit, but it's just important to root yourself back to you and not overthink everything else, and just use everyone around you to learn and grow and be the best you, rather than sort of thinking too down into it. And let's have a little look if there are any more. So obviously post-show is something that I want to touch on in a whole nother podcast, but a question here is post-show struggles and strategies as my last question. And I think that post-show is wild, because you don't know what's right and wrong. And obviously post-show, post-diet, post-shoot, it's important to learn from it. And I've learned so much about my body and how it works and what it responds to, and also what you need to do to make your head happy as well. So this is something that I want to really delve into, but all I would touch on with post-show is just also being kind to yourself. I think the biggest thing that I found was knowing what was right and wrong. Should I be gaining this, or should I be losing this? Is this the right amount to gain in this time? Or, it's something we really struggle with, even after a heavy diet phase, whether it's for a shoot, for a show, or just lifestyle. So it's really important to just find what works for you, and every prep will feel different. Every diet phase will feel different. And yeah, I don't want to give too much away, because I want some other guests to talk about this topic. And I think post-show is just about being confident in every part of the process, and appreciating prep for what it is, and appreciating off-season for what it is. And I think the sort of initial post-show is just important to just take it steady and slow, but also trust the process and not sort of go completely crazy, because your body is in recovery mode. And I think that is the most important thing. Your body needs to be happy. Normally at the back end of prep, it can be really tough on your body, and your body is struggling. So it's important to be kind and have some enjoyment, and give it the things that it needs to sort of get to back to some normality more than anything else, but keeping routine and structure in place. So obviously I will speak about that more with post-show with some other guests who are also competitors as well. But obviously, if you ever have any other questions about topics that you want me to talk about, or my experiences, or maybe do another episode to this one to expand on some more things, I would love to hear from you. And I'm always in tune on my Insta and engaging with you guys. So do let me know. And I hope you enjoyed me covering some of these topics today, and hopefully you will tune into the next episode. A big thank you for joining me on my channel and tuning in. Find me on Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, Amazon and YouTube, A Diary to Empower. Follow me on Instagram, m_power.fitness, and TikTok, m.ibert. See you on the next episode.